The digital voice recorder on the steel table clicked on with a sound so sharp, it reminded me of a rock bolt fracturing under impossible pressure. Across from me, investigator Cora Scott slid an aerial photograph forward, and the moment it stopped between us, the whole disaster seemed to open again. A jagged, smoking sinkhole had swallowed the intersection of 5th and Main. And directly beneath that crater was the active Red Line commuter rail. Project manager Corbin stated on the record that you miscalculated the coordinates, Andrew, she said, her voice stripped of all emotion. Did you? The interrogation room was a sterile white box buried somewhere in the subterranean levels of the Transit Authority headquarters. It smelled of ozone, floor wax, and that faint coppery trace of old adrenaline that never really leaves a place like that. Even 48 hours after the breach, I could still feel pulverized silica dust embedded deep in the whorls of my fingerprints. It was still there. So was everything else. State your name and professional designation for the record. Investigator Cora Scott did not look up from her legal pad when she said it. She was the kind of woman built from sharp angles and objective facts, wearing a gray suit that looked like dust itself had been denied permission to touch it. Andrew Hudson, I said. My voice came out rough. My throat still scraped raw from the concrete particulate that had filled the air 2 days earlier. Licensed professional land surveyor, specialization in subsurface topography. Scott tapped a silver pen against the aerial photograph between us. In that high-resolution gloss, the catastrophe was frozen in a single, merciless frame. The street had collapsed inward into a massive funnel of asphalt, mangled rebar, and ruptured water mains. At the bottom of that dark throat, barely visible through settling dust, was the crumpled silver roof of a Red Line commuter train. Mr. Hudson, you were the lead surveyor for the North Extension Tunnel project. Your signature was required on the final authorization before any breakthrough blasting could commence. Is that correct? Yes. Yet there is no signed authorization form in the site office files. That was the first moment she finally looked up. Her dark eyes pinned me to the chair. Project manager Vance Corbin claims you verbally approved the coordinates, then abandoned the site due to a personal dispute before signing the paperwork. He claims your initial survey was flawed, leading the blast crew off trajectory. A cold knot tightened in my stomach. But it was not fear. Truthfully, it was fury, pure and unfiltered. Vance was trying to bury me under the rubble he created. Vance Corbin is a liar, I said, leaning forward until the metal chair squealed beneath me. I did not abandon the site. I was escorted off the property by security because I refused to sign a death warrant. The trajectory did not drift because of my math. It drifted because he ignored the bedrock density reports to speed up the tunnel boring machine. And when I told him we were veering into the Red Line clearance zone, he told me to look the other way. Scott's expression did not change, but her pen stopped tapping. That is a severe accusation, Mr. Hudson. You are alleging that the project manager willfully authorized a blast knowing it intersected an active transit tunnel. I am not alleging anything, I said, staring at the photograph of the crushed train. I am telling you exactly what the math told me. I warned him. I showed him the numbers. We need to start from the beginning, Scott said, turning a fresh page on her legal pad. Walk me through the 48 hours leading up to the incident. I closed my eyes. The sterile white room disappeared instantly, replaced by the damp, claustrophobic dark of the tunnel, the smell of diesel, and the slow, ominous dripping of groundwater. It was Tuesday morning at 5 a.m., 180 foot below the city surface. The air in the North Extension was thick, a soup of diesel exhaust, rock dust, and the wet, heavy humidity that bleeds out of deep earth. To my left, the tunnel boring machine sat dormant for maintenance, a multi-ton beast of steel and grinding teeth waiting to wake up again. Farther down the shaft, the blast crew was preparing the final rock face. Between us and the main transit hub was only 20 yards of limestone and shale. My job was simple, but the reality was that underground, simple can become absolute in a heartbeat. I had one responsibility: make sure we were exactly where we were supposed to be. In subsurface topography, there is no room for interpretation. You do not guess. You do not estimate. You measure. I stood behind my total station, a highly advanced optical instrument mounted on a heavy yellow tripod. I was running a traverse, a chain of precise measurements connecting our current position back to our known starting point above ground. I peered through the objective lens and adjusted the fine focus knob until the glass prism mounted on the far tunnel wall snapped into perfect clarity. Then, I triggered the laser. The machine hummed as it calculated distance, vertical angle, and horizontal angle in milliseconds. The screen lit up in the dim tunnel light. Elevation minus 182.44 foot. Northing, 458,992.11. Easting 102,234.05. I blinked and wiped a smear of condensation from the screen with my thumb. Then I looked down at the master blueprints clipped to my clipboard. The numbers did not match. They were not even close. According to the master plan, we were supposed to be at a negative elevation of 188 foot. The laser was telling me we were at 182.44, nearly 6 foot higher than we were supposed to be. A chill climbed up my spine, and it had nothing to do with the damp underground air. 6 foot may not sound like much on the surface, but underground, in a web of intersecting tunnels, utility corridors, and buried infrastructure, 6 foot is not a small mistake. It is a canyon. Hudson, we holding you up? I turned. Daniel Corbin, the veteran blasting foreman, was trudging toward me. Daniel was a big, broad-shouldered man whose high-visibility vest always looked stained with grease and rock dust. He was a good man, a hard worker, the kind who trusted the paper he was handed. But there was another layer to it, and that mattered. Daniel was Vance Corbin's uncle, a quiet little piece of nepotism that meant Daniel never really questioned the brutal schedules Vance pushed down from the surface. Just recalibrating, Dan, I called back, my voice tighter than I wanted it to be. Make it quick, Daniel grunted, pointing a thick, gloved finger toward the rock face. Vance is breathing down my neck. He wants those charges set by tomorrow afternoon. He has a bonus riding on breakthrough before the weekend. I will have the data cleared shortly, I said. Daniel nodded and turned back to his crew. The second he was gone, I reset the instrument. I checked the level bubble, perfectly centered. I checked the temperature compensator. I checked the atmospheric pressure compensator. Everything was flawless. Then I shot the laser again. The machine hummed. Elevation minus 182.44 foot. The math did not change because the truth had not changed. I pulled out my field book and started running manual trigonometric calculations, pencil tearing across the grid paper. If we were drifting upward at a 3-degree incline over the last 200 foot, likely because Vance had ordered the tunnel boring machine operators to push through a harder layer of rock instead of slowing down and correcting angle, then the entire trajectory had been altered at its core. I traced that invisible line forward through the rock wall on the blueprint. My pencil tip landed directly on a thick red circle marked on the master plan, the Red Line subway. And in that instant, the air around me seemed to change. If Daniel's crew drilled the blast pattern according to the original blueprints, they would not be opening a neat passage into the new transit hub. They would be driving hundreds of pounds of high explosives straight into the sidewall of an active commuter tunnel during rush hour. My breath caught in my throat. The dripping water around me grew suddenly louder, like every echo in the tunnel was trying to warn me at once. The rock wall in front of me no longer looked like stone. It looked like a loaded gun aimed at a crowd. I packed up the total station with shaking hands. Fast. Too fast. But I did not have time to be careful. I had to stop the drillers. I had to get to Vance. The project management trailer sat above ground in the midday sun, and stepping inside felt like crossing into a different universe. The air conditioning blasted with Arctic force. The scent of coffee and dry erase markers replaced diesel and wet earth. Behind a wide laminate desk sat Vance Corbin, his feet up, barking into a headset. Vance was 38. He wore custom-tailored safety vests that had never seen a speck of dirt, and he managed construction projects the way corporate raiders dismantle companies. To him, engineers and surveyors were not safeguards. They were obstacles, pessimists, delays standing between him and a completion bonus. I did not wait for him to finish his call. I unrolled the blueprint across his desk, right over his keyboard, and slapped the printed telemetry logs on top of it. Vance raised one finger at me, glaring, then tapped his headset. I got to call you back. My surveyor is having a panic attack. He pulled the headset off and dropped his feet to the floor. Andrew, this better be good. You are tracking mud on my floor. Stop the drilling, Vance, I said, my voice low and vibrating with tension. Pull Daniel's crew back right now. We are off trajectory. Vance let out a long theatrical sigh of irritation. He picked up my telemetry sheet, barely glanced at it, then tossed it back down. We are not off trajectory. The tunnel boring machine hit a tough patch of rock. It shifted a few degrees. It is within acceptable tolerances. It is not within tolerances. I stabbed my pencil against the red circle on the blueprint. Look at the math. You are 6 foot high and drifting right. The breakthrough blast is not going to hit the reinforcement ring in the new hub. It is going to blow out the structural supports of the red line. You are pointing a bomb at an active subway. Vance leaned forward, elbows on the desk, eyes narrowing. Do you know what it costs to halt production, backfill the drift, and realign the tunnel boring machine? It costs $2 million and sets us back a month. My contract stipulates a massive penalty if we do not break through by Friday. And what is the penalty for dropping a city block onto a commuter train? I snapped back. At that exact moment, the office door opened and Daniel Corbin stepped in, pulling off his hard hat. Hey Vance, the drillers are ready to start boring the blast holes. We just need Andrew's final coordinate sign-off. Vance looked at his uncle, then back at me. His face went cold. See? We are ready to go. The crew is waiting. Daniel trusts the plan. Daniel does not know the numbers, I said, turning toward him. Dan, the elevation is wrong. If you set those charges, enough. Vance barked, standing up and jabbing a finger into my chest. You are paid to measure, Andrew. I am paid to manage. The structural engineers built a massive safety factor into that subway wall. It can handle a little vibration. It is not vibration, I said, feeling blood pounding at my temples. It is a direct kinetic impact. The rock strata will not hold. It will hold, Vance said, his voice dropping into something low and dangerous. Then he pushed the final authorization form across the desk toward me and tapped the signature line. You are going to recalculate your little numbers so they fit the blueprint, and you are going to sign this form. Because if you do not, I will find a surveyor who will, and I will make sure you never work in this city again. I stared at the blank signature line. It looked like the edge of a cliff. The fluorescent lights in the project management trailer buzzed with a high insect-like frequency that made my teeth ache. It was late afternoon now, and outside, the heat had climbed hard enough to push the trailer's air conditioning unit to its rattling limit. I sat rigid in a plastic folding chair across from Vance. Between us lay the final breakthrough authorization form, a single sheet of heavy bond paper, crisp and terrifyingly white. This time Vance was not alone. Standing near the window with his arms crossed and his eyes fixed on the blinds was the site's structural engineer, a man named Miller. He was 2 years away from a cushy retirement and had built an entire career on one principle: never make waves. I am going to make this very simple, Andrew, Vance said. The shouting was gone now. That was what made it worse. His voice had turned smooth, reasonable, and poisoned all the way through. The tunnel boring machine is secured. Daniel's crew has already drilled the primary pattern. The blasting caps are being wired as we speak. We detonate at 6:15 p.m., right as the shift changes. I need your signature to clear the OSHA compliance checklist. Have you looked at the math I left you? I asked, keeping my voice level. Miller looked at it, Vance said, gesturing vaguely toward the corner. Miller says your calculations are incredibly pessimistic. I turned my head. Is that true, Miller? Did you run the spatial drift against the bedrock density? Miller shifted uncomfortably without taking his eyes off the blinds. There is a margin of error in all topographical surveys, Andrew. The subway tunnel has a reinforced concrete shell. Even if the blast wave translates farther than intended, the structural integrity of the red line should deflect the kinetic energy. Should deflect, I repeated, feeling my chest tighten. You are betting the lives of hundreds of evening commuters on should. If we are 6 foot high and drifting right, then we are not sending a vibration into their wall. We are detonating shaped charges directly into the load-bearing crown of their tunnel. It is a controlled blast. Vance slammed his hand flat on the desk, shattering the calm mask he had been wearing. It is designed to fracture, not obliterate. You are holding up a $90 million infrastructure project because you are terrified of your own instruments. My instruments do not lie, Vance, I said. I leaned forward and locked eyes with him. Physics does not care about your fiscal quarter. Rockstrata does not care about your completion bonus. If you push that button at 6:15, you are going to breach an active subway line. Vance exhaled slowly and pushed himself away from the desk. He walked to a mini fridge, pulled out a bottle of water, and took a long drink. When he turned back, his face was sealed shut, empty. Calculating. "Sign the paper, Andrew," he said softly, "or pack up your desk." The silence inside that trailer became suffocating. I looked down at the signature line. I thought about my mortgage. I thought about the brutal years it took to earn my surveyor's license. But then, truthfully, another image crushed everything else out of my mind. I heard the deafening roar of a commuter train. I saw a ceiling giving way under impossible weight. I picked up the black pen resting beside the paper. Vance smirked. It was small, just the twitch of a victorious lip. Miller finally looked away from the window and exhaled like a man who thought the crisis was over. No. I pressed the pen to the page and wrote across the signature line in bold, dark block letters. "Refuse due to critical alignment failure." Then I tossed the pen onto the desk. It clattered against Vance's coffee mug. He stared at the letters. The color drained out of his face, then came roaring back as a furious blotched red. "You are done," Vance whispered. The termination was brutal, efficient, and humiliating in exactly the way he intended. He did not just fire me. He called site security. Two heavy men in yellow high-visibility jackets flanked me and marched me toward the locker room to collect my personal gear. I was not allowed to touch the blueprints. I was not allowed to access the site computer. "You need to call Daniel," I pleaded, turning back toward Vance as the guards pushed me out through the trailer door. The afternoon sun hit my face like a physical blow. "If you will not listen to me, let me show Daniel the logs. He is the one wiring the charges. If he knows the elevation is off, he will not do it." Vance stepped out onto the metal stairs of the trailer and looked down at me with naked disgust. He adjusted his spotless hard hat. "Blast crews do not check the other side, Andrew," he sneered, his voice carrying over the growl of idling dump trucks. "They just push the button. Daniel does what I tell him to do. And you are trespassing." One of the security guards put a heavy hand on my shoulder and shoved me toward the main gate. My heart hammered against my ribs like it was trying to break free. They are going to do it, I realized. He is going to forge another surveyor's name or use an old signature page, and he is going to blow that rock face. I reached into my pocket and felt my ruggedized work tablet. It was company property. Security would demand it before I got through the turnstiles. But that tablet contained the raw telemetry data from the total station. The exact digital coordinates proving the tunnel was drifting upward, and the truth was obvious now. If Vance wanted to bury this, the first thing he would do was wipe the total station's hard drive and shred my field book. My thumb found the power button. Under the disguise of adjusting my tool belt, I woke the screen. I could not risk looking down, so I moved entirely on muscle memory. Settings, Cloud Sync, Master Archive, Upload. At the perimeter gate, the security guard held out a plastic bin. Radio, hard hat, ID badge, and tablet. "Hudson, let's go." I pulled the tablet from my pocket. On the screen, a small green progress bar hit 100%, sync complete. Timestamp, 11:14 a.m. I dropped the tablet into the bin. It landed with a hollow plastic thud. Then I unclipped my ID badge and tossed that in too. Without another word, I walked through the heavy iron turnstile. The metal teeth ratcheted behind me and locked into place. I was outside the fence. I had the data backed up on a remote server, but as I looked back at the sprawling construction site, a cold terror washed over me. Being right was not going to stop the clock. The corner booth diner smelled like old fry grease and bitter coffee. It sat directly on the intersection of 5th and Main, an aging brick holdout trying to survive beneath towers of glass and steel. I sat in the back booth with a mug of coffee going cold between my hands. It was 5:15 p.m. Every 7 minutes, the diner floor vibrated. It was subtle, just a low rhythmic thrumming that rattled silverware against porcelain plates. But I knew exactly what it was. The Red Line commuter train, packed shoulder to shoulder with thousands of people heading home from the financial district, rushing directly beneath my feet. I stared at my phone. For the last 6 hours, I had called every regulatory agency I could think of. The OSHA hotline put me on hold for 40 minutes before taking a message. The Transit Authority safety inspector's voicemail was full. I even called the local police precinct, trying desperately to explain the immediate danger of a spatial drift anomaly to a desk sergeant who eventually told me to take my employment dispute to civil court. No one understood the math. No one understood the urgency. To them, I was just a fired employee making noise. I had called Daniel Corbin 12 times. Every call went straight to voicemail. Down inside that tunnel, boxed in by hundreds of foot of limestone, there was no cellular signal. He was completely cut off, methodically packing ammonium nitrate into the rock face, trusting that the brilliant people above him had done their jobs. My mind started turning against itself. What if I was wrong? The thought came like a whisper and then burrowed deep. I grabbed a napkin from the dispenser and started scribbling formulas from memory. Sines, cosines, angles of depression, distances, laser refraction indices. I ran the numbers again, and then again, and then again. The napkin became a chaotic web of graphite. I wanted to be wrong. I prayed to any god willing to listen that I had miscalibrated the total station. I prayed Vance was right about the structural tolerances. I prayed Miller knew something about the red line's concrete casing that I did not. Then I looked up at the clock over the diner's pie case. 6:10 p.m. The diner was busier now. 2 booths over, a young mother was cutting up pancakes for a toddler. Near the register, 2 businessmen in suits were arguing over stock prices. Outside the window, traffic on 5th Avenue was bumper to bumper. And beneath us, the floor began that familiar vibration again. Another train was arriving at the station just down the block. It would be loading passengers right now. Hundreds of them. 6:12 p.m. My breathing turned shallow. I pressed both palms flat against the Formica table as if I could somehow feel through it, somehow intercept the danger below. I closed my eyes and pictured Daniel in the tunnel. He would be spooling out detonator wire now, walking backward toward the safe zone. Vance would be standing in the trailer, checking his watch, mentally counting his completion bonus. 6:14 p.m. The diner noise faded. Plates clattering, voices overlapping, the hiss of the espresso machine. All of it seemed to collapse inward under a suffocating silence. The second hand on the wall clock swept toward 12. There was nothing left to calculate. There was nothing left to do. 6:15 p.m. First, the vibration stopped. Not gradually, abruptly. The silverware on the diner table went still for a fraction of a second. The earth beneath 5th Avenue turned completely, unnaturally silent. Then the floor dropped. It was not a rumble. It was a violent, concussive jolt that shot straight up through the soles of my boots. A deep, hollow thud slammed through the brick walls of the diner, a sound so low I felt it in my teeth before I truly heard it. The plate glass window facing the street bowed inward with a sickening groan, then snapped back. Above the pie case, a fluorescent bulb exploded, spraying sparks and white powder across the linoleum. The diner dropped into darkness as the power grid tripped. Screams tore across the room. The young mother lunged across her table to shield her toddler. I did not move. I could not. I sat frozen in the booth, both hands planted on the table, staring blind into the sudden dark because I knew exactly what that sound was. I had heard it 100 times in controlled environments, buried beneath layers of rock. But up here, in the open concrete canyon of the city, it was monstrous. A multi-charge ammonium nitrate sequence. Daniel pushed the button. Then came the second tremor. Different. Worse. Not the blast itself, but the grinding, tearing sound of structural supports failing under millions of pounds of asphalt and topsoil. The ground was swallowing itself. My math was perfect. And because it was perfect, disaster was unfolding exactly 60 foot below my chair. I burst through the diner doors into absolute chaos. The evening sun was blotted out by a fast-growing cloud of pulverized concrete and soil. It looked like a gray blizzard had dropped without warning on the financial district. Pedestrians ran in every direction, coughing into sleeves, their business clothes coated in ghostly dust. I ran against the crowd toward 5th and Main. Car alarms screamed in every direction. Somewhere in the distance, the first wail of emergency sirens cut through the haze. As I got closer, the dust thinned just enough for me to see it. The intersection was gone. All 4 lanes, gone. In their place was a jagged smoking crater at least 80 foot across. Its asphalt edges curled downward like the lip of a volcano. Ruptured water mains were already firing high-pressure geysers into the pit, mixing with the dust and turning everything into slick gray mud. I edged closer, my heart slamming against my ribs, terrified of what I was about to see at the bottom. Through the mist and the spray, the mangled steel skeleton of the North Extension tunnel came into view. And directly beneath it, crushed under slabs of bedrock and the weight of the collapsed street, was the unmistakable silver and red casing of a commuter train. "Get back. Everybody get back from the edge." I looked across the crater. Through the haze, standing near the chain-link perimeter of the construction site, was Vance Corbin. Miller stood near him with a handful of site security. Vance's pristine safety vest was now dusted gray. He was staring down into the hole, mouth open, all the color gone from his face. The arrogant project manager was gone. In his place stood a man watching his life's work and his freedom implode at the same time. For one brief, horrifying second, our eyes met across the smoking chasm. I expected horror. I expected realization. But the truth was darker than that. As Vance looked at me, the shock on his face hardened into something else. His jaw tightened. His eyes narrowed. Even through the dust and chaos, I could see it happening. The gears were turning. He was not thinking about the train. He was not thinking about the dead or the trapped. He was thinking about survival. The harsh fluorescent lights in the interrogation room snapped me back to the present. The sterile air replaced the thick, suffocating dust of the disaster zone, but the memory still made my hands shake. Investigator Cora Scott watched me carefully, her pen hovering over her legal pad. "You witnessed the immediate aftermath," she said, confirming the details I had shared. "What did you do next, Mr. Hudson?" "I stayed until the first responders secured the perimeter. Then I went home," I said. My voice was flat. There was nothing I could do. I wasn't an employee anymore. I was a liability to them. Scott nodded slowly, almost imperceptibly. She reached into a thick manila folder on the table and slid a photocopy of a document across to me. 3 hours after the breach, while emergency crews were still trying to stabilize the crater, Project Manager Vance Corbin initiated an emergency protocol with the NTSB and city authorities, Scott said, her voice now dropping into a clinical, bureaucratic rhythm. He submitted a preliminary incident report to explain the catastrophic deviation in the blast trajectory. I looked down at the document. It was a standard site report, bearing the company logo, but the highlighted section jumped out at me. The spatial drift anomaly that led to the breach was the direct result of gross negligence by the lead surveyor, Andrew Hudson. Hudson miscalibrated the primary total station, resulting in a 6-foot elevation error. Upon discovering his error just prior to detonation, Hudson became erratic, refused to take responsibility, and abandoned the site without submitting a correction log or attempting to halt the blast sequence. A cold, heavy silence filled the room. The sheer audacity of the lie took my breath away. Vance had not just covered his tracks. He had actively constructed a narrative to frame me for the entire disaster. He was relying on the fact that I had been escorted off the property, making it look like I had fled the scene of a crime I had committed. "He signed this?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "He did," Scott confirmed. "Furthermore, the physical survey logs in the site office, the ones you claim showed the spatial drift, were missing when our team locked down the trailer, and the hard drive on your total station had been wiped. A corrupted sector," Corbin claims. "An unfortunate technical glitch." I leaned back in the metal chair, the weight of it all sinking in. Vance had moved fast. While people were trapped beneath the rubble, he had shredded field books and wiped hard drives. He had eliminated the paper trail. In the eyes of the NTSB, it would be his word against mine, just a fired, disgruntled employee with no evidence to back up his claims. "If this report is accepted as fact, Mr. Hudson," Scott said quietly, "you will be charged with criminal negligence resulting in a mass casualty event. You will lose your license, your livelihood, and likely your freedom." I stared at the forged document in front of me. The anger that had been simmering inside me since I was marched out of the gates boiled over. Vance thought he had won because he controlled the paper. He thought I was just a surveyor who stared through a lens, measuring distances. He had forgotten what I had told him before he fired me. My instruments don't lie. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out my smartphone, placing it gently on the table next to the forged report. "Do you know how modern surveying equipment works, Investigator Scott?" I asked, looking her directly in the eye. She frowned, glancing down at the phone before looking back up at me. "I know it uses lasers to measure distance," she replied. "It does," I said, "but a total station isn't just a laser. It's a localized GPS, an altimeter, and a digital vault. Every single time I pull the trigger to take a measurement, the machine logs a multi-point data packet. It records the exact time down to the millisecond, the atmospheric pressure, the ambient temperature, the operator's ID, and the raw spatial coordinates. You can't fake it. You can't manually type it in to make it look right." I tapped the screen of my phone. I slid it across the table toward her. Scott picked it up, her brow furrowing. She looked at the data displayed on the screen. "I know you're familiar with spreadsheets," I said. "You're familiar with timelines and budgets. But Vance Corbin? He doesn't understand data the way you or I do. He thinks it only exists on the pieces of paper I hand him." Scott glanced back at the phone, her expression hardening as she read the data. "Miller says your calculations are pessimistic," she murmured. I nodded. I showed him the numbers. I showed him the elevation, but he couldn't see what was staring him in the face. Scott looked back at the screen, then traced her pen across the displayed data. "The timestamp reads 11:14 a.m., she read aloud. "That's 7 hours before the blast. You initiated the sync while you were being escorted out of the gates." And the elevation column, she stopped, her pen hovering over the screen. "-182.44 foot, she read aloud. Her voice suddenly dropped, no longer detached, replaced with the sharp realization of just how damning this data was. "I told you," I said softly. "The data proves we were nearly 6 foot high, drifting right. The data proves I took the measurements. And if you subpoena the corporate network logs from the site trailer, you'll find that I sent Vance Corbin an encrypted email containing this exact dataset at 11:45 a.m., begging him in writing to halt the tunnel boring machine." Scott stared at the screen for a long, terrible moment. The air in the interrogation room felt heavier with every passing second. When she finally looked up at me, the skepticism that had defined her gaze earlier was gone. Instead, something colder and much sharper replaced it. "He knew," she whispered. "He knew," I confirmed. "He wiped the hard drive and shredded the paper to frame me, but the math is already in the cloud." Scott didn't say another word. She stood up, grabbed my phone, and walked out of the room. It was early morning when I found myself in the NTSB Mobile Command Center, a massive matte black RV parked just outside the construction site's chain link perimeter. Inside, it hummed with the sound of servers and tactical radios. Scott had brought me in at 5 a.m. They needed me physically present to authenticate the decryption keys for my cloud archive as her cybercrimes team mirrored the data into the federal database. I sat in a swivel chair in the back of the van, staring at a bank of live security feeds from the construction site. Through the internal camera feed, I saw the exact moment Vance's empire came crumbling down. At 5:15 a.m., a fleet of unmarked black SUVs rolled through the gates of the construction site. They didn't stop at the security checkpoint. They drove right through the plastic barricades, swarming the project management trailer. Dozens of federal agents in tactical gear poured out, securing the perimeter while others breached the trailer doors. Inside, Vance was already trying to salvage whatever he could, looking exhausted and furiously typing on his computer. I couldn't hear what was happening, but the visual was enough. Vance stood up, shouting, pointing his finger, trying to maintain his untouchable executive persona. But then the lead agent handed him a piece of paper. It wasn't an OSHA compliance form. It was a federal search and seizure warrant for criminal negligence, evidence tampering, and manslaughter. Vance's face went from outrage to disbelief. He looked at his wiped total station in the corner, then back at the agents as the crushing realization hit him. He was done. He tried to escape it, but the truth was already everywhere. Even Vance couldn't escape the cold certainty of the numbers. The agents moved swiftly, and within minutes, Vance Corbin found himself shackled, his career and his freedom slipping away. His pristine corporate arrogance was nowhere to be found. Standing before the agents, his hands now bound behind his back, Vance seemed small, helpless, and utterly defeated. As they marched him across the staging area toward a waiting transport vehicle, I watched him, unable to look away. He stopped for a brief moment, his eyes darting around. Then he looked up, and for a split second, I thought he might see me. I was in the shadows of the mobile command center, but I could have sworn our eyes locked. Vance's expression shifted. He looked utterly destroyed, and for just a moment, I felt something resembling vindication. But then his eyes hardened, narrowing with cold calculation. Even at the brink of his undoing, Vance was already trying to figure out how to survive this. He wasn't thinking about the lives lost, or the families devastated. He wasn't thinking about the people trapped beneath tons of rubble. No, his mind was focused on something else entirely: self-preservation. He was going to use every trick at his disposal to claw his way out of this. The agents escorted him to the waiting transport, and I remained frozen in place, watching the scene unfold in front of me. The pain of everything I had witnessed, everything I had tried to stop, still felt too raw to process. The sounds of emergency sirens echoed faintly in the distance, growing louder as they neared the crater site. I knew what they would find there, and part of me wished I could go back and change the course of events. But I couldn't. What was done was done. Minutes later, the back doors of the mobile command center opened, letting in a blast of cool morning air. A fresh breeze cut through the stale, tension-filled atmosphere inside the van. I stood up, eyes still fixed on the monitors as I watched Vance's downfall play out in real time. The truth had come to light, and now, finally, there was nothing he could do to cover it up. It wasn't long before I was called into the main operations room. Scott, alongside a team of agents, was already reviewing the final stages of the investigation. The federal agents had gathered all the necessary evidence: the data from my total station, the emails, the backup files, the manipulated reports, everything that had been carefully hidden by Vance and his team. Scott's voice broke through the buzz of activity as she turned to me. "You did good," she said, her tone steady and clinical, yet tinged with a hint of something more. "I know it hasn't been easy, but you've brought us the evidence we needed." I nodded, my stomach still tight from the weight of what had happened. The truth was out now, but the damage was irreparable. The lives lost could never be brought back, and the families affected by this catastrophe would carry that pain with them forever. Still, I knew that this moment marked the end of one chapter and the beginning of another one, where justice would finally be served. Vance's arrest was only the beginning. There was still much work to do, but at least now, I knew that I wasn't the only one who would have to live with the consequences of this disaster. The whole truth would come to light, and it had to. For those who had died, for the families who would never see their loved ones again, and for everyone who had been affected by the carnage, the collapse, the chaos, it was over. I had been exonerated. My surveyor's license was reinstated, and my reputation was cleared. The NTSB report officially praised my adherence to safety protocols, my diligence in ensuring that the math was right, even under extreme pressure. But as I sat in the command center, watching the chaos unfold on the screen, I knew one thing for sure. Vindication is a cold comfort when you've already seen the unthinkable. I didn't survey underground anymore. The weight of what had happened made it impossible for me to continue down that path. I left that life behind, taking a job in a quiet rural setting. I began mapping property lines, walking through open fields beneath a wide, unbroken sky. But every so often, when I'm standing behind my instrument, measuring the distance between oak trees and stone walls, a faint vibration will rattle the ground beneath my boots. It's the sound of a truck rumbling down a distant highway, or the far-off noise of passing traffic. But for a brief, terrifying second, it feels like the ground is giving way again. I freeze. My heart stops. I hold my breath, waiting, and then the moment passes. The vibration fades, but in that split second, I am back in the diner, back in that dark, claustrophobic tunnel, trapped in the inescapable weight of knowing what was about to happen. The ground beneath me might have been solid, but the truth had already crumbled.